Going into 2023, Octopath Traveler 2 was one of my most anticipated games. I loved the new setting, character designs, and potential of what could be improved. After thoroughly devouring this game, not only did it deliver, but so far it's the best RPG of the year. Now before I get into the review, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent. This is a prequel to the original Octopath Traveler game with a brand new cast of characters. It includes all the hallmarks of the series you've come to expect, like gorgeous HD 2D visuals, exciting turn-based combat, engrossing stories, and incredible music from composer Yasunori Nishiki. And the best part, it's completely free to play. Now probably my favorite part about this game is how you can bring up to 8 characters into combat for some really exciting battles. For some of the tougher bosses, they can get really intense and super fun. I also really enjoyed the wealth story route, as I couldn't wait to take down the sickening covetous witch. She's just nasty. Now the game is available for Android and iOS devices, so be sure to use my download links in the description to start playing today. Thanks to Square Enix for sponsoring this video, and now on with the review. Much like its predecessor, Octopath Traveler 2's story is presented in a very unique way. At the beginning of the game, you'll have the option to choose between one of 8 different characters. As you progress through one chapter, you'll slowly unlock the ability to gain new characters to your roster. Eventually, you'll be weaving between all 8 character stories until the very end. Now, one thing to note is that you're kind of stuck with the first character you choose until you complete their story, so choose wisely. If I had to make a recommendation, I would say Hikari, as that's one of the strongest melee characters in the game. For me, I did choose Throne, and I really enjoyed her story, but she's not quite as versatile. Now, one of the biggest complaints from the first game was that all the 8 character stories didn't really connect at the end of the game in a meaningful way. Now, I will say they still don't go all the way with it. However, there are moments where 2 characters meet up and have a story together. That said, they're kind of brief and not all that deep, but for those that are looking for something a little bit more than just the singular character stories, these can be kind of cool. Now, obviously, opinions will totally vary depending on your taste, but to me, I felt like the stories here were way higher quality with way fewer stinkers. In the previous game, I felt like half of the stories were good and half were just okay or I didn't really care for. Here, I only felt like 1 or 2 of the stories weren't very strong. For my personal favorites, I really enjoyed Throne, Agnia, and Hikari. I was super invested to see what would happen with all their different stories. If I had to just pick one favorite, it had to be Agnia. It's all about her trying to follow in her mother's footsteps and become a star. To me, I just love a good underdog story, and she's absolutely adorable. I kind of have a weakness for those stories, and I absolutely loved it here. I also have to say that the voice acting here was fantastic. There are so many various aspects that gave characters depth here, whether it be accents or just different ways you could feel invested. Overall, the performances were just really high quality.
I'm gonna go around the town, gather a posse. Whoever's willing to come.
Basically, no matter what type of story you're looking for, there's sure to be a few here that will grab you. By the way, fun fact, did you know that if you take the first letter of every character's name, it spells out Octopath? I thought that was a neat touch. Octopath Traveler 2 takes a if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach to its gameplay. Now for the uninitiated, it's a turn-based RPG where you can have a party of up to 4 characters and you'll initiate these battles through random encounters. Now to begin, each character is assigned one class that has class-specific abilities. As you win battles, you'll earn experience points and job points. Experience points will increase your levels and character stats, whereas spending job points will give you new abilities. And the really cool thing is you can unlock abilities in any order you want. Now scattered throughout the world are different shrines that have those same classes, and you can equip them on other characters so they can have 2 classes at once. This creates some really fun combinations and some really broken builds. I'll let you discover those for yourself, or you could just look them up on YouTube. Now there are other unique classes that none of the characters start with, like the Inventor, for example, who can build devices and basically attack with any weapon. And there's also tons more that, again, I'll let you discover for yourself. Now one of the greatest joys I got from this game was trying out the different class combinations and finding all the new classes throughout the world. It was just so fun to mix and match and see what kind of crazy combinations I could make and what characters worked well together. Now as for the combat itself, it works like this. Each enemy will have a series of weaknesses that you'll need to reveal as you hit them with that weakness. These can be anything from different elemental spells to different weapons. And with enough hits, you'll break that enemy and they can't attack and you'll be able to do more damage. This is leveled up a notch for bosses as they have way more different shields to break through, and sometimes they even lock away the ability to hit certain weaknesses. It just makes for some great intense intense encounters. And overall, I just feel like the combat has a really great flow to it. You're constantly trying to find enemy weaknesses, balancing out your attacks so you have enough to break all the enemies. And if it feels a little too slow, you can speed up the battles and make them go faster. Oh, and also you have these orbs that you'll gain every turn, and depending on how many you have, you can act an extra time for each orb you have. So there's a lot of strategy here. Do you want to save them up and pair them with a big ability later on, or use them right now so you can break an enemy? It's up to you, and that's what makes the battle so intriguing. Now there is one new combat mechanic here called latent power. Essentially, there's a meter that builds throughout battles, and once it fills up, you can unleash a ton of new abilities. For example, Hikari can unleash powerful new attacks, and Throne can act twice. Finding clever ways to utilize all these different abilities with certain class combinations was so fun. For example, I found that Throne was a really good healer because she could act twice in a row if I saved that ability, in a pitch that came in so handy. Overall, the combat is super familiar and barely changes, but why change what's great? Now, when you're not in combat, you can activate your path actions. These can be anything from stealing items from characters, recruiting characters, asking for information, and finding hidden items. What was interesting is I kind of felt bad at the beginning for stealing items, especially from little kids, but I found that there was really no downside, so I kind of just ended up stealing over and over again and ended up getting some really good items. Now, exploration is totally transformed here with two new mechanics. The first one are canoes. This creates a new way to explore the world. You can kind of go down little creeks or, maybe cross a little bit of the ocean and get to a little island. As someone that loves finding secrets and just exploring big worlds, this was really fun because sometimes I would find a place and it ended up going down to this big dungeon, and I found a cool item that I wouldn't be getting until much later in the game. And next is the ship. With the ship, you can customize it to look however you want, whether it be colors or sails. You can also explore the ocean and different islands with it. This totally opens up the map and gives the game a greater sense of scale. I loved getting that ship and just exploring everything I could right away, and sometimes I couldn't do everything because I was too low level, but it just got my mind thinking of, oh man, I can't wait to go there later on and see what's there. It was really fun to use that. Overall, the gameplay improvements are kind of subtle, but they're really quality ones and enough to justify a sequel like this one. From a presentational perspective, once again, the game is very familiar. It retains that same great HD 2D visual style, and while the original game did later launch on Xbox and PC, I never played that version and I only played on Switch, so now that it's available at 60 frames per second here on PlayStation 5, it just made that game look so much better. Although weirdly enough, apparently it runs better on PS4, I don't know how that works, but apparently that's the case. Another thing I noticed is that it seemed like they toned down the depth of field as it was very extreme in the first game, so there's not as much blurry backgrounds, and I like that because I actually got to get a sense of what the town was like because I could actually see it now. I also loved the new setting. They've moved away from a more generic fantasy setting to something that's more like steam engines, Wild West, and ancient Japan. The game just has such a great collection of towns and visuals. There's just much more variety here. They also added a day-night cycle to the game, and I feel like the team was very proud of this because on the cover art, it seems to really emphasize the fact that it's at night and there's a lot of light sources, and I can't blame them. The game looks fantastic at night, especially when you have lanterns and you're exploring in the water. Man, it just looks incredible. It seems like the team also took a step up when it came to camera movements, both in story moments and in combat. I like that because it felt like the game had a higher quality feel to it. And as always, the music is excellent. The main theme is pretty similar, but kind of gets a level up, and a lot of the town themes and character themes were fantastic as well. Octopath Traveler 2 doesn't reinvent the wheel for this sequel, but it didn't need to. It built upon a solid foundation of a gorgeous art style, dynamic combat system, and unique approach to storytelling. Now, it may be disappointing to some that the game still doesn't fully connect all the stories, but I think anyone that enjoyed the original, or just anyone that enjoys a good RPG, will really enjoy this game here. The year is young, and there's a lot of fantastic looking games still to come, but for my money, Octopath Traveler 2 is the best RPG of the year so far. Now, if you want to hear about other great JRPGs that released this year, be sure to click into this playlist right here. And special thanks to Reset Switch, Tyler Kuzawa, and the Miyazaki Man for supporting me over on Patreon. To get exclusive videos and other cool perks, consider supporting me over on patreon.com/thegaming shelf. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.